Chapter 3:15. Among the four sons, the third Jiaoyu's eyes were the most similar to Gu Mengmeng's. They were coffee-colored and looked a little like amber. Moreover, Jiaoyu's eyes were bigger and rounder than Gu Mengmeng's, making him look more innocent and adorable. Because of this pair of eyes, Jiaoyu was the only one among the four sons who could receive a smile from Elvis. 5 weeks later, Elvis and Leah unanimously agreed to let Gu Mengmeng wean all four sons. This made Gu Mengmeng very, very resistant. Whose child can only drink milk for a little more than a month? It's normal for us to feed them until they are 1 year old. Even if the situation doesn't allow it, we should at least feed them for a full 8 months, right? Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's hand and fought for her sons. Little Jiaoyu was lying on Elvis's shoulder. He howled twice, but no one knew what he was saying. But Gu Mengmeng immediately said, "Look, our sons already said that just a little more than a month is too little. This is abuse, inhumane abuse." Elvis looked up and met Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He replied seriously, "I am a wolf and I don't have any humanity." Moreover, Jiaoyu said that they have already started to grow teeth and can eat the meat cooked by Leah. It doesn't matter if they are weaned. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah doubtfully and asked, "Really? Jiaoyu really said that?" Leah nodded, indicating that Elvis was telling the truth. Elvis's face darkened. "I won't lie to you." Gu Mengmeng carried Jiaoyu down from Elvis's shoulders, turned around and secretly tapped his little nose. She lowered her voice and said, "Mummy is helping you fight for your welfare, why did you change sides?" Elvis was stunned. Elvis stood up and hugged Gu Mengmeng's waist from behind. He rested his chin on her neck and said gently, "Because this fellow has half of your blood, so he has humanity and a conscience. He knows that squeezing Mummy for nutrition is wrong. As males, they should rely on themselves to survive." Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders and said unhappily, "What do you mean by relying on themselves to survive? Is there something wrong with you?" Leah struck up a conversation at the right time. "They have already started to grow teeth. If they don't stop breastfeeding soon, they might accidentally scratch your skin. In order to protect you, they will habitually eat with their gums, which will hinder the growth of their fangs. In the future, if they encounter danger, fangs that are not sharp enough may kill them." But Gu Mengmeng wanted to retort, but she suddenly realized how weak her rebuttal was. Yes, she and Elvis could protect the little wolves now, but could she protect them forever and not let them be independent? What was taken for granted in the modern world had become spoiled here. Gu Mengmeng fell into deep thought, feeling a little down. She didn't know what she was feeling melancholy about. She just felt that her son wasn't as dependent on her anymore. Jiaoyu howled twice in Gu Mengmeng's arms. His childish voice was especially lovable. Gu Mengmeng kissed his little head and said, "You guys don't need a mother so soon." Jiaoyu's face turned red. Jiaoyu wagged his tail and stuck out his little tongue to lick Gu Mengmeng's face. Then, he tilted his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. He did not say anything, but Gu Mengmeng could feel his concern. "Are you comforting Mummy?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "Mummy is too useless. She actually let a 5-week-old baby comfort her." "Ow ow," the other 3 little ones also gathered around Gu Mengmeng's feet. Their front paws clung onto her calves as they howled in a childish manner, as if they were saying, "Mummy, don't worry, we won't leave you." Aside from the topic, "Come, babies, the quiz is starting. Please listen to the question." Chapter 3:16. In the 3rd week after the little wolves were weaned, the snow-sealed cave entrance started to loosen. Gusts of cold wind blew in, bringing with it a chill but no longer piercing to the bone. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and walked to the cave entrance. With a seemingly effortless push, the snow sealing the cave entrance scattered outwards like a plate of loose sand. Actually, the scene that Gu Mengmeng was looking at was not aesthetically pleasing. It was completely different from the scene of early spring. Instead, the unmelted snow had divided Saint Nazaire into many ravines. Although there was no pollution from car exhaust and the melted snow was still white and clear, Gu Mengmeng did not have any intention of stepping out of the cave. However, only Gu Mengmeng did not want to step out of the cave. It was the first time the four little ones saw the situation outside the cave. Everything was too novel to them. Without waiting for Gu Mengmeng's instructions, the four little ones had already dashed into the snowy water. The snowy water was ice cold, but it was not an obstacle to them. Although their fur was not as thick as Elvis's, they could still withstand this level of cold. Whether it was the smell of the air or the touch of the snow beneath their feet, they all made the little ones extremely excited. The four little ones chased and played like four little lunatics. "Babies, come back quickly, it's so dirty," Gu Mengmeng shouted, but why would the four little ones, who had gone crazy from playing, care about her? They had long become wet dirty cats in the snow. They looked, just like a husky playing in the mud. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis resentfully and frowned, saying, "I suspect that you have the bloodline of a husky, but you are actually a husky disguised as a wolf, right?" Elvis was helpless. Although he still did not know who a husky was, it was obviously not a good word. Because Gu Mengmeng would only have such thoughts every time he made a fool of himself or when the four little ones were too mischievous. "I'll go catch them back." Elvis shook his body and transformed into a wolf. He dashed into the snow and bit the back of Kanwa's neck in an instant. He muttered something with his throat and the other three little ones immediately lowered their heads, not daring to act rashly again. They followed behind Elvis with their tails tucked between their legs and walked back obediently. Gu Mengmeng was very curious, so she asked Leah secretly, "What did Elvis say to them?" Leah pretended to be in deep thought and dragged out the last syllable, for a long time. Then, instead of answering, he asked, "What benefits would I get if I betray Elvis? After all, he's the first partner of the family and I'm just a pet. What if he gets angry and kills me?" Gu Mengmeng placed one hand on Li's shoulder and looked at him with an expression of, "I surrender to you. Can we not talk about the beast pet? Can't we just be normal friends? Ordinary friends?" Leah savored those 4 words before turning his head. "I will not betray the first partner of the family for an ordinary friend. I will be chased out." Pfft. Gu Mengmeng was speechless. In the end, he still classified her as a beast pet. As he spoke, Elvis had already returned. He transformed into a human and threw Kanwu on the ground. He wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and said, "I told them, if they don't listen to my wife, they can scram out of my cave." Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. She should have thought of that. How could Elvis coax children with gentle words? How could it be right? Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy, Lazy Silkworm Baby and No, for your monthly votes and evaluation votes, and thank you to the little darling of QQ Reading, Big Willful, and Wife, for their 99 reading points. Chapter 317. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not manage to hide back into the cave. Elvis transformed into a wolf and shook the black fur on his body. Leah carried Gu Mengmeng onto Elvis's back while he followed behind Elvis. His large tail swept across Gu Mengmeng's back from time to time, in a flirtatious manner. Just as Leah had said, he was dutifully playing the role of a vixen that was allowed by the legal wife. The 4 little ones were forbidden from running around on the snowy ground because of their mother. After all, they were still too young and could not transform like Elvis to get rid of the dirt on their bodies. If their fur remained wet, Gu Mengmeng was worried that they would catch a cold. So, Jiaoyu, the only one that Elvis liked, laid beside Gu Mengmeng's legs obediently, near Elvis's shoulder. The oldest, Hada, was carried in Gu Mengmeng's arms, acting cute to his mother from time to time. Second brother Qixian lay on Li's shoulder, his big eyes darting around. Everything he saw was novel and exciting. His 2 front paws tapped and clawed at Li's shoulder, whimpering in a childish voice that no one knew what he was saying. The most mischievous Kanwa was carried in Li's arms because he was really too naughty. He kept wanting to run onto the ground and howled a few times, saying that he wanted to walk by himself. He only restrained himself after Elvis glared at him. He did not dare to make a fuss in the open, but he kept trying to escape from Li's arms secretly. Leah pinched his 2 hind legs and patted his little butt lightly with his other hand. He said in beast language, "The level pressure is insurmountable. If you want to escape from my hands, you have to at least wait until you mate. So, you better give up. I won't let you do anything that will make your mother frown." Gu Mengmeng did not understand what he was saying. She turned back to look at Leah and Kanwu. The two of them pretended that nothing had happened and smiled at Gu Mengmeng pretentiously. Elvis brought the whole family to the platform of the deity's punishment. It was very magical. The surroundings were filled with snowy water, except for this piece of rock which was very dry. Elvis leaped up and then laid down to let Gu Mengmeng down. When Gu Mengmeng carried her 2 sons and jumped down from Elvis's beast body, Leah had already transformed into a fox. He coiled his body in a nursing position and used his mouth to bite Gu Mengmeng's clothes, signaling her to sit on him. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "Today is the day when winter ends. The tribesmen will all be coming over later. You are the tribe's witch doctor after all, you still need some face. Quickly change back." Leah did not force her. He just stood up and shook his body twice. His fluffy white fur looked like he was filming a shampoo commercial. But Leah did not transform into his human form, neither did Elvis. The two of them stood side by side at the edge of the platform of the deity's punishment. They didn't talk to each other, but they looked up to the sky and roared in unison. Howl! As Elvis and Lee's cries stopped, the cries of different beasts echoed from afar. Roar! Ao. Then, Gu Mengmeng saw ferocious beasts approaching them one after another. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng would definitely feel very scared. But now, she only felt very happy. That was great. Everyone had successfully survived the winter. She had been worried that she would not be able to see many familiar faces again after the beginning of spring. That was great. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's baby, Sway, for giving me 2 monthly tickets, so touched. Chapter 318. Gu Mengmeng wanted to find someone she was familiar with among the beasts, but to her, everyone's beast form was no different from normal wild beasts. She really could not tell who was who. However, it was easy to distinguish the female sitting on the back of the male beast. From afar, Gu Mengmeng saw a soft and adorable girl wearing an oversized beast skin dress. She was rubbing her eyes as she sat on the back of a golden cheetah, walking towards them. Gu Mengmeng recognized that pair of ears, but did not dare to recognize that face. She had a slender waist, long legs and arms that were even slimmer than Gu Mengmeng's. She had a small oval face and big watery eyes that carried a sleepiness unique to spring. She looked like she was still in love, and when she saw Gu Mengmeng from afar, a sweet smile bloomed on her face. She waved and shouted, "Gu Mengmeng, Gu Mengmeng." Gu Mengmeng narrowed her eyes and hesitated for a moment before calling out, "You are Sandy?" Sandy pouted, clearly unhappy. She grumbled, "It's only been a winter since we last met. Why do you look like you don't know me?" Gu Mengmeng could not help but clap her hands and exclaim, "Damn, how did you spend the winter? Did you go to Korea for plastic surgery and liposuction?" Howl! The golden cheetah that was carrying Sandy lowered its head and scratched the ground with its front paws, making a sound that no one knew what it was trying to say. Sandy smiled and hugged the cheetah's head to kiss it. "It's good enough that we survived, who wouldn't be skinny? Don't worry, I will work harder to eat more this year. This way, I will be fatter next spring." Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched as she squatted beside Sandy. She pointed at the cheetah and asked, "This fellow is Bode?" Sandy nodded and said, "Yes, I only have one partner, Bode, who is a cheetah." Gu Mengmeng asked again, "Why doesn't he transform into a human? Is he pretending to be a naughty cheetah?" Sandy smiled and said, "Although we have more food stored this year than in previous years, it is still not enough to fill their stomachs. It's already not easy for all of them to survive. They don't even have the energy to transform into a human now. But when the tribe leader brings everyone out to hunt and have a full meal, they should be able to transform back by the time they return." Gu Mengmeng replied with an "oh," not really understanding, thinking to herself that he was just starving. Just as she was about to say something, the four little ones could no longer hold back their excitement and rushed to Gu Mengmeng's feet. They circled around her, wagging their heads and wagging their tails as they howled. Gu Mengmeng patted their little heads and asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you just eat when you left? Are you hungry again?" Roar, 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 the little fellows shook their heads vigorously. "Then what do you want to do?" Gu Mengmeng felt a deep sense of sorrow. Damn, she actually had a language barrier with her own son. Sandy held Gu Mengmeng's hand in disbelief, her eyes widened to an unprecedented degree. She pointed at the four little ones and stammered, Gu Mengmeng, these are your sons? You gave birth during the winter? You gave birth to him?" Gu Mengmeng found it rather funny and pulled Jiaoyu, who was lying on her knees, into her arms with one hand. She pressed her face against Jiaoyu's and said, "You are my biological son, I guarantee it. How was it? Don't they look like me?" Sandy nodded her head like a pounding garlic. The admiration on her face had already broken through the horizon. Tears welled up in her eyes and she was about to lose control of her emotions. She hugged Gu Mengmeng excitedly and said incoherently, "That's great, that's great. We finally have cubs." Aside from the topic, thank you to the baby of Xiaoxiang Academy, Orchid Jade Tree, for the 4 monthly tickets and 1 flower love you. Chapter 319. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Why was Sandy's words so misleading? She made it sound like she had given birth to this child with her. Ow, ow, ow. Jiaoyu was sandwiched between Sandy and Gu Mengmeng, almost suffocating. He struggled to escape, but this strong auntie was so strong despite looking so skinny. His struggles were futile, and he could only let out a miserable howl in hopes of attracting his mother's attention. But luckily, Sandy immediately let go of Jiaoyu's cry. She wiped her tears and said embarrassedly, Sorry, I was too agitated. Saint Nazir finally has a nest of cubs, there is finally hope for our tribe." Gu Mengmeng knew that Saint Nazir was founded by Leah and Elvis. Ever since it was founded, only Nina had conceived a nest of eaglets, but because of Nina's perverted and twisted mentality, this nest of eaglets had all died in her father's hands. And after that, Saint Nazir did not have any more cubs born. Every winter, a batch of male beasts would die, and during the spring beauty pageant, the tribe's first beauty would come forward to attract a new batch of male beasts to the tribe to replenish their numbers. But no one knew how many of these replenishing members would survive the next year, so the cohesiveness of Saint Nazir was not as strong as other tribes with strong reproductive abilities. Because there were only 2 core members in Saint Nazir, Leah and Elvis. The other males who had already mated would follow their females. If one day the female was unhappy and wanted to leave Saint Nazir, the males would definitely follow her. And the males who did not mate would most likely take a liking to a female from another tribe during the beauty pageant the next year, and run off with her, so, it was a very important matter to have their own cubs. This meant that the number of core members in the tribe would increase. Of course, it would be even better if they could give birth to a female cub, because if it was a female cub from the tribe leader's family, then her partners would all become the core of the tribe, which was the strongest cohesiveness of the tribe. However, to a tribe like Saint Nazir which had always been short of manpower, it was already a joyous occasion for them to have these 4 new troops. So, Nina could not be blamed for being so agitated. Gu Mengmeng patted Sandy's hand and said, "Hey, don't be so agitated. Maybe you can give birth to a female cub for our tribe this year?" At that time. How about a betrothal? Sandy tilted her head and asked, "What is a child betrothal?" Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and called the 4 little ones over. Then, she said, "In the future, if you give birth to a male baby, let them become brothers. They can help each other and support each other. If you gave birth to a female..." Gu Mengmeng rubbed her nose and smiled awkwardly. "Just let her choose one of our sons that she is satisfied with and prioritize him." Gu Mengmeng also did not want to arrange her son's marriage so early, but the ratio of males and females in this world was too abnormal. She could not possibly let her son be a bachelor forever, right? It would be fine if he was always single, but what if he met a perverted female like Nina? Rather than that, Gu Mengmeng was more willing to let her son be with Sandy's girl. At least they could get to know each other. Sandy was a gentle woman, and her daughter was no worse. Moreover, they were from the same tribe. If they really gave birth to a female cub, Gu Mengmeng would naturally teach her well as a daughter-in-law. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's baby, 13080716417, for the 3 monthly tickets. True love indeed, you left all the tickets for me, right? Chapter 320. All right. Sandy agreed readily and smiled sweetly. If I can really give birth to a female cub, I will let her choose your son as her first partner. Gu Mengmeng laughed happily and pushed her sons' butts. Hey brats, aren't you going to greet your future mother-in-law? Mother-in-law? Sandy tilted her head and asked. It means the mother beast of one's female partner. We call it mother-in-law over there. Gu Mengmeng explained. Then what should the father beast of the female partner be called? Sandy asked. Father-in-law. Gu Mengmeng answered without hesitation. Sandy tapped her chin and thought for a while before saying, so Elvis has to call Leah father-in-law now? Pfft. Gu Mengmeng choked on her own saliva. She laughed dryly. Your burning heart for gossip, can't you think of something else? Sandy chuckled and said, seeing that you and Elvis have finally become partners, I feel much more at ease. You don't even know how worried I was that you would leave Saint Nazaire. I even thought that if you were to leave, no matter where you go, I will follow you. Although Saint Nazaire is really important to me and my life here has always been stable, I don't want to leave you. Sandy hugged Gu Mengmeng's waist and said coquettishly. Gu Mengmeng patted Sang's back as if she was coaxing a child and said, not leaving, I am still waiting for my son to marry your daughter. The 4 little ones were completely uninterested in things like mother-in-law, especially when this mother-in-law occupied their mother the moment she came. Usually, their mother would hug them, but now, she was hugging this auntie with monstrous strength. TSK, so disgusted. The 4 little ones snorted and ran to one side to play. Seeing that the 4 little ones had left, Sandy then sat up straight and asked softly, where is Elvis's mark on your body? Can I see it? Gu Mengmeng tugged at her collar and revealed her collarbone. A black wolf stood there arrogantly, with its head held high and chest puffed out, looking valiant and formidable. Ah, it's already so close to the heart. He must be overjoyed, right? Sandy nudged Gu Mengmeng lightly in a flirtatious manner, then glanced at Elvis from the corner of her eyes. She covered her mouth and giggled. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and said, actually, I feel a little guilty. It would be great if I could imprint it on my heart. Now. I always feel like I'm being disloyal. Sandy shook her head in disagreement and said, his imprint wasn't branded on your heart, which proves that he didn't work hard enough. How can you be blamed for this? Gu Mengmeng smiled but did not retort. Because she knew that the concept of the beast world was different from hers. No matter what she said, Sandy would not be able to understand. So Gu Mengmeng changed the topic and asked, what about you? Where is your mate mark? Why haven't I seen it before? Sandy turned around and moved the tube top upwards. Gu Mengmeng saw Bode's mark where the tube top was originally covering. Ah, on my back. It's also very close to the heart. Sandy nodded and said, of course, he's my first partner after all. If you don't like him, why would you choose him? Gu Mengmeng nodded, then asked, what about the others? Don't you have 8 partners? Sandy nodded and lifted her beast-skin skirt. On her thighs were a bear and a wolf. Gu Mengmeng knew the bear was a dolly, the one who was almost beaten to death by Nina's partners before winter. Gu Mengmeng also knew the wolf, but she could not remember its name. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy, QQ3A811FB6E1042, Fang Shuier, Drunk Meng Qianro, and Mao was for their monthly votes. Love you all, Mwax. Chapter 321. Gu Mengmeng was just about to gossip about Sandy and her new partner, Bailey, when she saw another female walking towards them from the bustling crowd of beasts. Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched and she sneered. Why is it that you look like you went through plastic surgery this winter, but this fellow is still as fat and ugly as before? Sandy followed Gu Mengmeng's gaze and twitched her lips. She's like this every year. I wonder how many of her partners she has eaten this year. Gu Mengmeng's hair stood on end and she looked at Sandy as if she had seen a ghost. She eats her partners every year? Sandy nodded and said, to her, partners are like stored food during winter. Therefore, she didn't reject any of the males who expressed their love to her and accepted them all. But some males don't even have the chance to mate and become food in her stomach. Here, look. As Sandy spoke, she used her fingers to count the heads of Nina's family, but Gu Mengmeng heard that she was not counting, but reading names. After counting once, she said, Quentin and a few first-level orcs who joined Saint Nazir last year are missing. Hearing Sandy's words, Gu Mengmeng then took a closer look at Nina's partners. Indeed, there was no eagle. Although Gu Mengmeng could not recognize the male beast in his beast form, Quentin was the only eagle beast in the entire Saint Nazir. What's more, he had the same size as the eagle in the Return of the Condor heroes. Moreover, with Quentin's hands, she could recognize him no matter how hard she tried. And with a glance, Quentin was indeed nowhere to be seen. Gu Mengmeng went to count again, 28. Nina's partners were only left with 28. Gu Mengmeng asked softly, Elvis said that every year at the beginning of spring, everyone in the tribe will come out to participate in the first hunt, and no one will stay in the cave to look after the house. Is that true? Sandy nodded as a reply. Gu Mengmeng asked again, so all her males are here? Sandy still nodded. Gu Mengmeng felt a wave of nausea in her stomach. She forced herself to suppress it before saying, Elvis said she had a total of 43 partners and now there are only 28 left. That means she ate 15 of her partners this winter? Sandy counted her fingers and said with some embarrassment, I only know that Nina originally had 43 partners. This is the number that Leah counted, it can't be wrong. But how many are there now, and how many are missing? I don't know how to count, so I can't tell. Gu Mengmeng patted Sandy's arm and said, she is so perverted, why are there still males willing to mate with her? Don't you want to live anymore? Sandy smacked his lips and said, even if they know that they might become her next meal, many males are still willing to exchange their lives for the right to mate with her. After all, if they could get a perfect female to give birth to a powerful cub, in the eyes of the males, even death would be worth it. Gu Mengmeng sneered and looked at her husband. Thinking of his attitude towards his sons, she really could not agree with Sandy's thinking. Not every male valued their cub, or maybe, they just did not believe that another male's tragedy would repeat itself on them. They always fantasized that they were special, different, and could become someone that Nina cared about, someone important to her. But they did not understand an old saying, a leopard can't change its spots. To put it bluntly, a dog can't change its spots. Nina's nature was selfish and twisted. No matter how passionate her love was, it could not warm her heart that was as hard as a rock. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling of Xiaoxiang Academy, Yusheng 1-2, for gifting 9 flowers. Does it mean forever? So romantic. Chapter 322. As she spoke, Nina had already walked in front of Gu Mengmeng. She smiled in what she thought was a flirtatious manner, but when her gaze landed on Huda and his brothers, her bean-sized eyes were filled with a viciousness that could not even be contained in the universe. You actually gave birth to wolf cubs during winter? Nina looked at Gu Mengmeng with a twisted expression. The flesh on her face trembled, clearly filled with anger and jealousy. Gu Mengmeng did not want to talk to her. She called her sons and pulled Sandy back. Nina did not want to let Gu Mengmeng leave. She grabbed onto Gu Mengmeng's arm from behind. Gu Mengmeng instinctively took a step back and leaned forward. She held on to Nina's wrist and exerted strength from her waist, doing a beautiful shoulder throw. Nina was thrown onto the ground with her limbs spread out. She was in so much pain that she was moaning. Seeing that Nina dared to bully their mother, the 4 little ones bared their teeth and rushed to Nina's side, biting her hand that was grabbing onto Gu Mengmeng just now. Ouch! Little brats, why aren't you letting go? I'm a precious complete female, how dare you bite me? I'm going to ask my males to kill you. Nina swung her arm with all her might, trying to shake the four little ones off. But how could the four little ones be afraid when they were angry? If someone bullied their mother, not to mention a fat chicken, even if it was their father, the four of them would still bite him. Gu Mengmeng stepped on Nina's shoulder, causing Nina, who had just sat up, to fall back onto the ground. She leaned forward and placed her elbows on her knees. She squinted at Nina and asked coldly, "Who do you want to ask your males to kill?" Gu Mengmeng's expression was especially terrifying. Nina bit her lower lip and did not dare to reply. She was in so much pain that her tears flowed freely. She turned to look at her partners and roared, "I'm being bullied like this and you're just going to stand there and watch?" Nina's partners were actually very embarrassed too. Although the four little ones were males, they were cubs after all. And not only were they the cubs of the tribe leader and the messenger of the beast deity, they were also the first cubs of Saint Nazir. They had an extraordinary significance to the entire tribe. They really couldn't bring themselves to do anything to a cub. Moreover, the person stepping on Nina was Gu Mengmeng. Not only was she a female, she was also the messenger of the beast deity. She was an existence that they did not dare to offend. If the one stepping on Nina was Elvis or Leah, then even if they knew they couldn't win, they could at most risk their lives for Nina. But now, how could they move? If you want to do something for your partner, you can challenge me. Leah was purely there to watch the show. He transformed into a human and stood behind Gu Mengmeng with a smile, facing Nina's partners who were hesitating but were at a loss of what to do. "Oh, let me introduce myself. I am Gu Mengmeng's beast pet, Leah." After Leah finished speaking, the entire Saint Nazir fell into a strange silence. Gu Mengmeng just wanted to slap Leah to death. What he said was equivalent to cutting off her own path of retreat. If Gu Mengmeng stood out to deny it now, it would be equivalent to abandoning Leah. With his status and reputation, the entire beast world would probably know that he had degenerated to become a beast pet and was even abandoned. He was betting his entire life, betting that if she still cared for him a little, she would not deny it in front of everyone. But, he won. Gu Mengmeng sighed. In the end, she did not say, "He's not," on the spot. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Snow on the Streets, for the flowers. Chapter 323. What? You actually became a beast pet for her? Nina could not care less about the four wolf cubs that were still biting her on her arm. She used all her strength to push Gu Mengmeng away and crawled up from the ground, rushing towards Leah to grab his arm. But Leah dodged beautifully and said in disgust, "Don't touch me, Gu Mengmeng won't like it if you dirty me." "But you already said that you want to mate with me, how can you become Gu Mengmeng's beast pet?" Nina did not give up and went forward to grab Leah again. Leah frowned and took another step back, replying, "If you come any closer, I will make you my first prey this spring." You also know, chickens are originally in the fox's diet. Nina looked at Leah in disbelief but did not dare to pounce on him again. She pointed at Gu Mengmeng but her eyes were looking at Leah. She said in a voice that sounded like she was scratching the wall with her nails, "You are a proper partner after mating with me. Now that Quentin is dead, I can even make you my first partner. I even promised you that I will give birth to a nest of little foxes for you this year, but you actually gave up on me and chose to become a beast pet for her." "I did not give up on you," Leah said seriously, "you were never in my choice of partner. In my heart, the only person who can be my partner has always been my Gu Mengmeng. You." Nina was so ridiculed that she could not say anything. The hand that was pointing at Gu Mengmeng was trembling. Gu Mengmeng went forward and twisted Nina's outstretched finger. With a cracking sound, Nina's finger was bent into a weird angle along with a scream like a pig being slaughtered, directly sticking onto the back of Gu Mengmeng's hand. "Didn't I tell you not to provoke me? Huh? On the first day of the new year, I did not look for you to settle the score, but you came to show off in front of me? Are you itching for a beating after being a cat for an entire winter?" After Gu Mengmeng finished speaking, she flung Nina's hand away harshly and called her four sons back, saying, "Do you use your mouth to bite all kinds of dirty things? Aren't you afraid of having a stomachache? Go play with your future mother-in-law. The four little ones howled in defiance. Sandy picked them up and comforted them. Be good, don't worry. Your mommy won't lose out. She is Gu Meng Meng. The four little ones tilted their heads and looked at Sandy, then at their father, Elvis, who was quietly standing at a high place and looking down at everything. They felt that Sandy was right. Given how protective their father was of his wife, he would not stand by and watch calmly if the beast mother was in even the slightest bit of danger. Thinking about this, the four little ones quietened down and obediently stayed in Sandy's arms. They imitated their father's face and watched Gu Meng Meng teach Nina a lesson. However, even though she looked so young and tender, she still wanted to imitate Elvis's expression. It looked a little comical, but very cute. Gu Meng Meng saw that her sons had already hidden far away, so she did not need to worry about accidentally injuring them. She pulled Nina's hair towards her knees and instantly raised her leg, using her knee to knock Nina's neck. Blood instantly gushed out from Nina's nose. Gu Meng Meng threw Nina onto the ground once again. You were the one who informed the people from Sauter about this, right? I gave you a chance to escape, but you refused to leave. I wanted to let you off this time because you are a female. As long as you stay quietly, I can let bygones be bygones. But you just had to jump around in front of me. You want to kill my sons, right? Let's see if you can live till that day. Aside from the topic, thank you to the big baby of Shaoxiang Academy, Lin Shi, the breeze of the dreamlike mountain, for the 99 roses, 50 diamonds and monthly tickets. Chapter 324. As Gu Meng Meng said, she raised her elbow and used her body's strength to smash Nina, who was pinned on her body and had nowhere to hide. She hit Nina's nose again. Nina howled in pain. Her face was covered in blood and her original appearance could not be seen anymore. Behind Gu Meng Meng, Nina's partners were already fighting with Leah. Perhaps this was the so-called suppression of strength. Leah did not even transform into his beast form and he was still able to handle the situation of 1 against 28. Rather than saying it was a battle, it was more like he was toying with them. Gu Meng Meng was not careless either. In the past, when she beat Nina, it was mostly because she was a bitch and was annoying. Gu Meng Meng had the intention to teach her a lesson, so she always showed mercy. However, after knowing that Nina had been eating her partner every year, her disgust for Nina had reached its peak. Therefore, when she heard that Nina wanted to kill her son, it was like throwing a lighter into a pile of gunpowder. It would be strange if it did not explode. If someone else said this, Gu Meng Meng might treat it as a joke that was not very funny and was just scaring a kid. But Gu Meng Meng did not dare to slight Nina. A person who could even eat her partners without any hesitation, what other perverted things would she not do? For her sons, Gu Meng Meng had the intention to kill this time. Raising a rock from the side, Gu Meng Meng aimed at Nina's head and was about to smash it. The rock stopped in front of Nina's face. Gu Meng Meng looked up and saw Elvis standing in front of her with the rock in his hand, looking down at her. Gu Meng Meng looked a little disheveled. Her hair was already in a mess and her body was covered in Nina's blood. When she saw Elvis, her eyes were watery. She was the one who kept beating them up, but she just felt so wronged. Looking up at Elvis, Gu Meng Meng said, "She said she wants to kill our sons." Elvis nodded and took the rock from Gu Meng Meng's hand and threw it to the side. Then, he carried Gu Meng Meng up from Nina's body and wiped her blood-stained face gently and carefully. He said, "If she has the ability, go ahead and kill them." Hubby. Gu Meng Meng's grievances instantly turned into tears as she stared at Elvis in disbelief. But Elvis laughed. He glanced at Nina, who was almost beaten to death by Gu Meng Meng, with disdain and said, "I don't care what happens to those 4 wolf pups. But if you and your partner dare to make Xiao Meng sad." Before Elvis could finish his sentence, he snorted coldly and emitted a strong pressure. In just a moment, everyone around the platform of the deity's punishment, including Leah, felt their knees were so heavy that they could not stand straight. Leah was slightly better off than the rest. He only knelt down on one knee in submission, while the rest were pressed to the ground, unable to move. The weaker ones fainted on the spot. Gu Mengmeng did not feel anything towards the beast pressure, she just felt that Elvis's cruel and cold expression was so handsome. So she wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck like a little bird and whimpered, "Hubby is mighty." Elvis did not say anything else. He shook his body and retracted his pressure. He glanced sideways at the four little ones who were playing around Sandy without a care in the world and raised his eyebrows. Even Leah, an adult third-level beast, could not withstand the pressure, but these four were actually fine. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby, Yunling Feng, from Xiaoxiang Academy for the 5 monthly votes and 1 evaluation vote. Today's update has ended. Continue tomorrow. Chapter 325. Elvis handed Gu Mengmeng over to Leah to take care of, while he led all the males in the tribe out to hunt, announcing the start of a new year. Leah stopped one of Nina's partners, asking him to bring Nina down to take good care of her, and not to be an eyesore. Otherwise, no one would be able to stop Gu Mengmeng from throwing stones at her again. That partner naturally could not ask for more, and hurriedly and carefully brought the unconscious Nina away. After Nina left, Gu Mengmeng then asked unhappily, "Why did Elvis stop me?" Leah smiled mysteriously, and inched closer to Gu Mengmeng sneakily, "Call me Daddy Leah, and I will tell you." Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes, "Whether you want to tell me or not, I can just ask Elvis when he comes back." Leah sighed in grievance, then suddenly stretched his arm from the back of Gu Mengmeng's head. His slender palm touched the side of Gu Mengmeng's face, pulling it towards him, and Gu Mengmeng's little face just happened to be on Lee's prepared lips. It was just a peck, and Leah quickly let go of Gu Mengmeng. Then, he sighed like a cat that had stolen a fish, and said before Gu Mengmeng turned hostile, "The female beauty pageant is coming soon." In the past years, Nina has always represented Saint Nazaire. If there is a sudden change this year, it will inevitably attract people's suspicions. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. Why go for Nina? Can't Sandy go? Look at how beautiful she is after slimming down. She is much prettier than that ugly Nina, all right? But Leah shook his head. At the end of winter, a female's figure represents the strength of a tribe. The plumper a female is, it means that the tribe has more food during winter. This is also one of the important factors for males to decide if they want to join the tribe. Moreover, Nina is a complete female after all. You will never know what a complete female means to a male. Gu Mengmeng slapped her thigh. Damn it, I am also a complete female, at most I will go. But Leah shook his head again, and gently caressed the side of Gu Mengmeng's face. Initially, I decided to take in Nina because I wanted to delay the time for you to expose yourself to the public. Since Sauter had received the news, it was believed that others would have heard about it too. But they are afraid of Elvis's power and dare not offend him easily. So this beauty pageant will be the best test. Gu Mengmeng frowned, asking, "What do you mean? Speak human language." Leah smiled and waved his big tail. He circled Gu Mengmeng's waist and pulled her closer to his side. He continued, "Normally, the tribe that obtained the messenger of the beast deity would choose to publicize the existence of the messenger of the beast deity to raise their own tribe's reputation and attract powerful males to pledge allegiance to them. The beauty pageant is the most suitable time. Therefore, if the one participating in the beauty pageant this year is not Nina, but Sandy or Maya, everyone will guess why a tribe with a perfect female would send a half-orc to participate in the beauty pageant. Maybe Nina died during the winter? Didn't they say that people often die in winter? Gu Mengmeng said in disdain. Leah smiled and nodded on Gu Mengmeng's little head, saying, "You still don't know the importance of a complete female to the tribe. Let me put it this way, if it wasn't for you, even if everyone in the tribe was sent to Nina's cave for her to eat, no one would frown. Which means, unless the entire Saint Nazaire tribe died, they would definitely not let a complete female starve to death." Aside from the topic, thank you to Lin Shi of the Xiaoxiang Academy for the flowers and monthly tickets. There are too many flowers, I can't even count them all. I feel so blissful, thank you. And thank you to 818 Quan GD, UMO Shi, WS. Sakura World Protector of Sakura Sui Jean. Forget time, for 99 reading points. Also, Daily Protection Group, Readers Group, 4927797273. Chapter 326. Gu Mengmeng really felt that it was not Nina who was twisted, but the worldview of the beast world was twisted. Wasn't she just lacking a pair of bare ears compared to Sandy? Was it worth it for the entire tribe to peel off their own skin and bones just to fill her stomach? Gu Mengmeng could not understand and could not be bothered to understand this twisted worldview, so she continued, then what if Nina was unhappy in Saint Nazir and left for another tribe? Leah smiled and shook his head. In the entire beast world, other than Saint Nazir, no tribe would take in a female whose mating mark has been washed away. Even if she is a complete female, no tribe would dare to take her in. Aren't you afraid that she would use the same trick again and harm the existing females in the tribe? Then, Gu Mengmeng was speechless. Since others know that you, the new messenger of the beast deity, are in Saint Nazir, it is not difficult to know that you and Nina are not on good terms. So, if Nina does not appear in this year's beauty pageant, the most likely reason is that she is dead. And the only person who has the guts and authority to deal with a complete female is the messenger of the beast deity. Once this guess is established, regardless of whether the messenger of the beast deity is really in Saint Nazir, this place will become the target of public criticism. After Leah finished speaking, he paused for a moment, as if he had thought of something funny. He sneered and continued, of course, if you directly appear in the beauty pageant, it would be a smart move. After announcing your identity, any conflict on the surface would be seen as a provocation to the messenger of the beast deity. That would cause a conflict in the entire beast world and every tribe would attack and kill the instigator to show their loyalty to you. But, to destroy a tribe and snatch the messenger of the beast deity, why would they only attack forcefully? By then, I'm afraid that all sorts of monsters and deities would infiltrate Saint Nazir and it would be hard to distinguish who is a human and who is a ghost. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said, so we must keep this Nina. We have to provide for her every year so that she can participate in the beauty pageant? Leah shook his head and narrowed his eyes. The existence of the messenger of the beast deity is not something that can be hidden easily. After this year's beauty pageant, Nina would be useless. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, so Elvis stopped me today because I still need Nina to participate in that beauty pageant, right? Leah shook his head again. How is that possible? If he could mistreat you for the sake of the bigger picture, he would have secretly summoned the leaders of the other tribes before winter and chosen a suitable person from their families to mate with you so as to form an alliance and rapidly expand the territory of Saint Nazir. If that's the case, I'm afraid Saint Nazir would already be the famous Messenger's tribe in the beast world. F***CK. Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt a little scared. She almost became a prostitute in the beast world and was forced to receive customers. She patted her little chest. Luckily, Elvis was a wolf with a conscience. Then why did he stop me? Gu Mengmeng was still confused as she tilted her head and asked. Leah smiled as he leaned forward and pressed the tip of his nose against Gu Mengmeng's. He smiled ambiguously and asked, you really don't remember anything we told you in the past? Gu Mengmeng retreated backwards awkwardly but unfortunately, her body was circled by Lee's big tail and the space she could move was limited. She cleared her throat and pushed Lee's chest away, saying, you can talk if you want, don't stick close to me. Leah retreated back resentfully and sat properly. He looked at Gu Mengmeng sadly and said, he stopped you because he knows you are soft-hearted and afraid of blood. He doesn't want any dirty memories to remain in your memory. Aside from the topic, thank you Xiaoxiang for reading Zishua's evaluation votes. Thank you everyone for helping me to give 5 good evaluations. Chapter 327. Gu Mengmeng placed her hands on her hips and asked, who told you that I'm afraid of blood? I, Lil Miss, am very daring. Killing chickens and slaughtering geese is as easy as lifting a hand. I won't even blink. But Leah smiled, it was a rare bright smile. Looking at Gu Mengmeng, he tapped on her little nose and said, Elvis and I still remember clearly how badly you cried on the day of your coming-of-age ceremony. Gu Mengmeng's aura instantly became like a little flame that was just lit up and had a bucket of ice water poured over it. After a sizzling sound, there was only a wisp of green smoke left. Meng Meng. Leah suddenly looked at Gu Meng Meng affectionately with a faint smile. His expression was serious, which was rare for him. After looking at Gu Meng Meng for a while, he continued, "Can't you try to rely on us occasionally? Elvis and I, we're waiting for your orders just now. If you want Nina to die, you only need to say the word. No matter if you called Elvis or me, we can do it for you. But why don't you give us a chance?" Gu Meng Meng sighed and said, "It's not appropriate to drag a man into a fight between women, right? Moreover, she's obviously not my opponent." Leah did not buy it. He tugged at the corner of Gu Meng Meng's shirt lightly and stared at his and Gu Meng Meng's overlapping shadows. He said in a low voice, "I'm envious of Barit." Ah. Gu Meng Meng did not quite understand. Why did Barit get involved when talking about Nina? Lee's tone was low and slow. That faint smile of his made one feel a little sad. "Barit at least went up the platform of the deity's punishment for you, while I did not even have a chance to express my loyalty to you." Leah suddenly raised his head and looked straight into Gu Meng Meng's eyes. His long and narrow eyes were filled with deep hesitation. He asked softly, "Is it because I'm a beast pet that you don't give me a chance?" Gu Meng Meng slapped Lee's head and said, "Did you graduate from a drama queen academy? Why are you so dramatic? Why are you pretending to be a peaceful, green tea bitch? I won't be angry if you don't mention the beast pet. But you announced that you're my beast pet in front of everyone. Did you ask for my opinion? How am I going to explain this to Elvis? I just got married, and my 4 children haven't even reached 100 days old, and now I'm keeping a vixen at home? Are you kidding?" Lee's mood disappeared after Gu Meng Meng's slap, so he regained his usual smile, flirtatious and flirtatious. He used his large tail to sweep Gu Meng Meng's body and softened his body in an alluring manner. He leaned into Gu Meng Meng's arms and looked up at her, saying, "Didn't you also not explain to Elvis when you were rearing rabbits in his cave? Why do you need an explanation for raising a fox now? Damn it, rabbits are not intelligent." Gu Meng Meng roared and pushed Leah. Leah took the opportunity to turn around and stand behind Gu Meng Meng, hugging her from behind. He rested his chin on Gu Meng Meng's shoulder and bit her earlobe softly. "Then why didn't you just expose me just now?" Gu Meng Meng looked at Leah. "You are the witch doctor of the tribe after all. If I humiliate you in front of everyone, how can you live in the tribe in the future? Your heart aches for me." Leah smiled. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and help me think of a way to settle this pet beast issue. I'm not acting in investiture of the gods, there's no use for a vixen. You came to the wrong recording studio. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby, Cukebase 5A865F62, for tipping 100 points. Chapter 328. Leah shrugged his shoulders and smiled, "That's easy to solve. As long as you mate with me, I won't be a beast pet anymore." Gu Meng Meng glared at Leah with a darkened face. She repeated with her most serious expression, "I grew up accepting monogamy. I will only have one husband in this lifetime. You better give up on this idea and consider others." Leah pouted his lips and said seductively, "The second method, when do you want to try snow fox meat, scram?" Gu Meng Meng interrupted Lee's words. She could not accept such a joke. Especially when she found out that this kind of thing was really happening around her, she couldn't accept it. Leah had a sense of propriety. He could tell when Gu Meng Meng was pretending to be angry and when she was really angry. Now that she was angry, he did not continue speaking. He just rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head and coaxed her, all right, since the news of me being your beast pet has already been spread out, just treat it as me wanting to flaunt my prowess by relying on you, the messenger of the beast deity. Even if you can't give me your love, you can at least lend me your name to show off, right?" Gu Meng Meng rolled her eyes. Did Leah need to borrow her name to show off? She did not forget how this fellow tore off one of Quentin's arms. She also did not forget how he left the same scar on Sandy's partner on so many of Nina's partners within 3 seconds. With his abilities, he would definitely be a big boss no matter where he went, all right? Gu Meng Meng did not reply to Leah. Sometimes, she was also very conflicted. Leah was the one who let go first, but she always lacked confidence in front of him. It was as if she was the heartless person who went back on his word and abandoned the old for the new. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng asked, Elvis brought the males in the tribe out to hunt. Is it all right if you don't go? Leah lifted his chin proudly and said, can't you tell? In the entire tribe, other than Elvis, I am the only one who can maintain my human form. This is the difference in our abilities, so you better consider taking me in. You won't be at a disadvantage. Gu Mengmeng's forehead twitched twice. She turned her head and said, scram. Gu Mengmeng ignored Leah and just pulled Sandy to the side. Leah did not follow them and only called the 4 little ones to play at the side. You really don't intend to accept Leah? I felt that Leah wasn't bad. Although he had a messy past with Nina, he probably had his own difficulties. I'm not as smart as you, but I can tell that Leah is sincere towards you. You can't possibly not feel anything, right? Moreover, Leah has already announced to the world that he is your beast pet. If you still refuse to accept him, he will be laughed at by others. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Sandy helplessly. Why are you also trying to persuade me to accept Leah? I have already mated with Elvis. I have a husband, a married woman, do you understand? You're still fooling around outside. You're going to be drowned in a pig cage, okay? Sandy pouted her lips and lowered her head in disappointment and sadness. She fiddled with her fingers and muttered softly, if Leah can only be a beast pet, then won't he have even less chance? Gu Mengmeng hooked Sandy's chin lightly with her hand and lifted her little face up. She squinted her eyes at Sandy and asked, Who is the person you're thinking of in your heart? Aside from the topic, thank you, Xiaoxiang's baby, Lifeng 7428. 18 monthly tickets. True love indeed. Thank you, baby. Chapter 329. Sandy was a little embarrassed. She looked at Gu Mengmeng's side profile against the light. She did not know if it was because of her guilty conscience, but she just felt her heart beating wildly. Blushing, Sandy avoided Gu Mengmeng's eyes and mumbled, no one. Gu Mengmeng slowly inched closer to Sandy until the tip of her nose was almost touching Sandy's. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng raised her brows and said, no one? That's not right. I can clearly smell an adulterous affair. Sandy hurriedly shook her head and said, no, nothing happened between me and Colin. Gu Mengmeng smiled devilishly and released Sandy's chin. She said in a seemingly casual manner, Colin. Sandy realized that she had let it slip. She hurriedly covered her mouth with her 2 hands and looked at Gu Mengmeng with her big innocent eyes. The word guilty was clearly written all over her face. Gu Mengmeng turned around and laid on Sandy's lap like how Leah usually did. She used her hand to gently pat Sandy's hand away from her mouth and asked with a smile, why? Do you like Colin? Sandy instinctively nodded her head before suddenly regaining her senses and shaking her head violently. Gu Mengmeng crossed her arms in front of her chest and closed her eyes. She just laid on Sandy's lap quietly as if she had fallen asleep. After a long while, she slowly opened her mouth and said, this is not the first time I have heard you mention Colin in front of me. Your feelings towards him are very obvious. Sandy's face turned red. Even though she knew that Gu Mengmeng had closed her eyes and was not looking at her, she still lowered her head guiltily. How is it? Do you need me to help you? Gu Mengmeng slowly opened her eyes. Sunlight was reflected in her pupils and it was so dazzling. Help me? Sandy was dazzled by Gu Mengmeng's gaze. She could not help but repeat the last 2 words after Gu Mengmeng. That unconcealable yearning and anticipation made her look like a little girl who just had her first awakening of love. Gu Mengmeng smiled and sat up. She pinched Sandy's little face and said, your feelings are all written on your face. Sandy blushed and hurriedly covered her face with both hands. She looked at Gu Mengmeng with her big innocent eyes and pursed her lips, unable to say a word for a long time. Colin is an honest man. If you like him, you have to act fast, Gu Mengmeng said. Sandy bit her lip and asked, do you like Colin too? The person he likes is you. If you are willing to accept him, I can give up. Gu Mengmeng smiled in a carefree manner and looked towards the beast horde that was charging towards them from afar. The eyes of the black wolf that was leading the pack were as bright as the stars in the night sky, its focused gaze meeting with Gu Mengmeng's. Gu Mengmeng waved her hands, then turned to look at Sandy. That is my man. Sandy nodded stiffly and didn't say anything. A small seed sprouted in his heart. Maybe, in just a few breaths, Elvis had already reached Gu Mengmeng. At the same time that he transformed into a human, he fastened his animal skin skirt. He remembered that his Xiao Meng did not like others to see his body, especially some exclusive parts. Gu Mengmeng went up to him. Standing on the platform of the deity's punishment, she was slightly taller than Elvis. She opened her arms wide and looked like she was asking for a hug. Elvis smiled and opened his arms wide. Gu Mengmeng leaned forward without hesitation and fell straight into Elvis's chest. She wrapped her arms around his neck and planted a kiss on the side of his face. My dear, welcome home. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy 138 by 0577 for the Fresh Flower monthly evaluation ticket. You really took care of me from all angles, haha, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, BG, for the 698 points rewarded. Chapter 330. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little head before carrying her on his shoulders. He leaped onto the platform of the deity's punishment and turned around to face his tribesmen. Leah had unknowingly appeared beside Elvis and stood one step behind him. He kept his joking expression and was focused and serious. Gu Mengmeng did not know what had happened and was about to ask when she saw Leah suddenly kneeling on one knee and placing his right hand on his left chest. He lowered his head in a submissive posture and said, Saint Nazir Witch Dr. Leah, leading the tribesmen to provide for the arrival of the messenger of the beast deity. We are willing to be commanded by the mighty messenger to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. We are willing to fight for you even if our bones are crushed. We are willing to die 1,000 times for you. Gu Mengmeng looked at the situation in front of her with a dumbfounded expression. She thought to herself, could it be that I should say, everyone, please rise? Or should I say, my beloved concubine, please rise? Elvis raised his hand and the crowd immediately quietened down. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and looked at Elvis with a face full of question marks. Elvis looked up and met Gu Mengmeng's gaze. He said, before winter, Leah had already announced your identity to the tribe. So the first thing after the first hunt in spring is to swear loyalty to you. Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly and asked in a small voice, then, what should I say? Elvis held on to Gu Mengmeng's little hand and kissed it. He said, allow us to swear loyalty to you and protect your honor as the messenger of the beast deity. Gu Mengmeng's lips twitched. Her smile was uglier than crying. Was she going to be a despot now? Could she reject him? Everyone was so familiar with each other and it felt weird to be worshipped like this. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng and could not help but smile. Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and thought to herself, why didn't you remind me just now if you knew this would happen? But she could not flare up in front of everyone. She could only grit her teeth and said, although I am the messenger of the beast deity, I am also the Gu Mengmeng that everyone is familiar with. Thank you for not abandoning me and receiving everyone's support. I will do my best to lead everyone to a better life. Gu Mengmeng broke out in cold sweat for herself. Luckily, she had been elected as a class monitor in high school, so she could change a few sentences from her script and use it here. Thank you, messenger, for your kindness. Leah took the lead again. After 3 chants, everyone slowly stood up. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief and patted Elvis's arm, signaling him to put her down. Elvis changed his position and hugged her in his arms. He whispered into her ear, don't get down, it's cold. Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded. The eyes of the entire tribe were focused on her. Such a small action was so intimate and sweet that she could not help but feel shy. Leah took a step forward and said, "Great messenger, regarding the selection of the guardian." Gu Mengmeng was stunned and asked, "What guard?" "The messenger of the beast deity should have 2 guardians on the left and right. They are in charge of conveying the messenger's orders and executing some special arrangements. The great messenger knows all the warriors in the tribe. Is there anyone you like?" Leah was still smiling warmly, but Gu Mengmeng could clearly see a trace of slyness in his eyes. F*******. He did it on purpose. Gu Mengmeng recalled the situation when Leah made her lie on the side of the plate to teach her son how to drink the bone soup. Aside from the topic, "Thank you, little darling from Shaoxiang Academy, WXIN 16 CF 33A021, for voting 4 monthly votes. I love you." Chapter 331. Gu Mengmeng said helplessly, "Just you and Elvis. Left guard, right guard, that's pretty good." But Leah shook his head and said with a face full of regret, "Although I really want to have more opportunities and more reasons to stay by your side, but the witch doctor and tribe leader cannot be the left and right guards. This is to prevent someone from having too much power and being biased when executing the mighty messenger's orders." Gu Mengmeng's head hurt a little. Although she knew almost everyone in the tribe, she could not name many of them. Rubbing her eyebrows, Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Elvis and said, "Hubby, you make the arrangements, all right?" Elvis's heart ached a little. He did not want Gu Mengmeng to be involved in these troublesome matters, but her identity meant that these troubles were just the beginning, and he could not stop it. Kissing Gu Mengmeng's forehead, he said helplessly, "I can't interfere with matters within the scope of the divine authority." "What do you mean?" Gu Mengmeng said with a bitter face, "Speak human language." Elvis was amused by Gu Mengmeng's sullen look. Others all dreamed of becoming the messenger of the beast deity. He had seen quite a few who swindled others, but none of them could put on airs better than Gu Mengmeng, as if they could get whatever they wanted, and look down on everyone else. But Gu Mengmeng, the genuine messenger of the beast deity, had no feelings towards the divine authority. It was as if the authority of the messenger of the beast deity was not as satisfying as a roasted sweet potato in the cave. The messenger of the beast deity has the right to dictate. Strictly speaking, Leah and I are your subordinates first, then your partners and beast pet. Gu Mengmeng slapped Elvis's chest and said fiercely, "Why are you talking about beast pet too? Can you not mention this anymore?" Elvis nodded and said, "Yes, my mighty messenger." Gu Mengmeng was a little impatient with this bureaucratic idea, so she pointed at Sandy and said, "Then Sandy and Maya, let them be my guards. They can help me coax my sons when they are free. That's pretty good." Leah whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "The guards must be males, because they have to become the messenger's claws and fangs, as well as her shield and armor. Sandy and Maya are too weak. They'll be killed." Gu Mengmeng swung her arms in annoyance and looked at Leah. "I can't do this and I can't do that. Why don't you give me a few candidates?" But Leah took another step back and looked at Gu Mengmeng innocently, saying, "Even the first partner can't interfere with the religious authority. I'm just a beast pet, and an unloved beast pet at that. What right do I have to make irresponsible remarks? If you continue spouting nonsense, I will pull out your tongue." Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and squeezed out this sentence. But Leah just blinked his eyes pitifully. Then, "He's sticking his tongue out right now." Gu Mengmeng patted his chin and Leah bit his own tongue without any warning. His mouth was filled with blood, but he was not hurt at all. In the end, Gu Mengmeng did not use all her strength. She was teasing and punishing him. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng and blinked his long and affectionate eyes. He leaned his shoulder against Gu Mengmeng's feet suggestively and asked, "Is this punishment enough? Actually, we can punish him even more." Scram! Gu Mengmeng finally could not take it anymore and roared, "Mighty messenger, please calm down. Mighty messenger, please calm down." Gu Mengmeng's roar made the tribesmen who had just stood up kneel on the ground again. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby, beautiful loving butler, for the 5 monthly tickets. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and said, the Great Messenger now orders all of you not to call me the Great Messenger. Just call me Gu Meng Meng like before." With that, Gu Meng Meng turned around, cupped Elvis's face and smiled, "Call me your wife." Elvis's gaze was as blue as the heavens, filled with endless deep emotions. His voice was as low and charming as a cello as he replied, "Yes, my queen." Gu Meng Meng was still a little embarrassed to say the honeyed words in front of everyone. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and buried her face in the crook of his neck. Using an angle that others could not see, she bit Elvis's neck lightly, then giggled in delight. Aside from the topic, thank you to Shaoxiang Academy for the C evaluation vote. Chapter 333. Gu Meng Meng and the rest returned to Elvis's cave directly. Previously, discussions were done in the witch doctor's cave, but now that the Eagle Owl tribe was staying in Li's cave, it was not convenient to go over. Moreover, with the messenger of the beast deity, the witch doctor was no longer the closest to the beast deity in the tribe, so naturally, the messenger's residence was the best place to discuss. Barit and Colin stood outside the cave, looking as solemn as door deities. Even if Gu Meng Meng could not feel it, she knew that they were releasing their beast pressure. The beast pressure of level 2 orcs was not low, but it was not high either. The deterrent effect of their beast pressure was actually limited, but everyone's beast pressure was different. Both of them were now the emissary's guardians, so the purpose of their beast pressure was to tell the people who approached, "The emissary is discussing something, and no one is allowed to approach." Gu Meng Meng smiled helplessly, patting their shoulders. "Relax, don't be so nervous. This is Elvis's territory, even if you don't stand there so dutifully, no one would dare to come here to eavesdrop." Barit and Colin looked at each other, then at Elvis. Elvis nodded, indicating that they should go and take care of Gu Meng Meng. No one would dare to go near the residence of a 4th-level orc. Even if they did, they would not be able to hide from his senses. "Yes, mighty messenger." Barit and Colin replied in unison. Gu Meng Meng's lips twitched, asking, "Are you two going to treat me like this too?" "Yes, I became the messenger of the beast deity, but I did not do anything to let you two down, right? Are you going to distance yourself from me like this?" Barit did not say a word, but Colin scratched his head innocently, saying, "Yeah, actually it's not distance. It's just that we don't know how to interact with you at the moment. After all, it's our first time being a guard, we don't know what to do." Gu Meng Meng burst out laughing, pointing at her own nose, saying, "It's also my first time being the messenger of the beast deity, we don't have much experience, so let's not laugh at each other. The main reason why I chose you two to be my guards is because you two are my friends, so I can trust my back to you two. But if you two handle this impartially and draw a clear line between us, I will be very sad. I don't want to lose my friends just because I became the messenger of the beast deity." He recalled that night when everyone was eating the delicacies cooked by Gu Meng Meng. That day, Oakley asked Gu Meng Meng why she didn't use the method of storing food to unify the beast world. Gu Meng Meng said that standing at the peak would make one a loner, without any kin or friends. Colin frowned and asked in all seriousness, "Then, if I still call you Gu Meng Meng, will others think that your guards don't respect you, so they will also look down on you and act as they please?" Gu Meng Meng's expression turned serious. But Gu Meng Meng laughed and asked back, "If the other party respects the title of the messenger of the beast deity, then I don't need this kind of respect. If they respect me, Gu Meng Meng, then even if I call them Zhang San, Li Si, Wang Ermatzi, they will still respect me. Besides," as Gu Meng Meng said, she leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you dare to be so presumptuous in front of me, you have to ask my husband for permission first." Elvis smiled faintly. He liked it when she used her power to bully others, especially when she used his power. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Shaoxiang Academy, little girl who loves reading novels, for the flowers and tickets, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, Red Sandalwood Fragrance, for the 399 reading points. Chapter 334. Gu Meng Meng used the ready-made ingredients at home to cook a huge hot pot. After Leah fed the bone soup to the 4 little ones, they fell asleep like little pigs after an entire morning of wild activities. The 5 adults surrounded the hot pot and chatted while eating. The atmosphere became much more relaxed. Now that there's no one else, tell me, how do you plan to deal with Ian and the rest? Gu Mengmeng asked Leah as she scooped meat into Elvis's bowl. Leah handed his bowl over as well. He had a proud look on his face as if he would not tell her if she did not let him eat the meat. Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered to argue with him, so she scooped a big bowl of meat for him. Leah ate 2 mouthfuls in satisfaction before continuing. I have a premonition that even if we send Nina to participate in this year's beauty pageant as usual, Sauter will not just leave us alone. They would definitely send more people to investigate the situation. So, I plan to hide Ian and the rest first and use them as a secret force for the messenger of the beast deity. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and said, would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Didn't Dumbo already verify my identity previously? The people in Sauter should have already known by now, right? Leah smiled faintly and said, Dumbo's life is not good. He fell into winter before even descending the mountains. I'm afraid he did not make it back alive to deliver the message. Otherwise, the people in Sauter would have rushed here long ago. Gu Mengmeng thought about it and agreed. Sauter was a snow fox tribe and Leah could walk in the snow. If Dumbo's message had really been sent out, he should have arrived long ago. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, do you think they will send another messenger over? Leah shook his head and said, no. Huh? Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in confusion. Leah continued, if the first messenger did not return, Sauter will be on guard. This time, they will definitely not come with great fanfare to ask for the people. Instead, they will use some underhanded methods. The people from the Snow Fox tribe are used to using such underhanded methods. Gu Mengmeng patted Li's shoulder and said in a serious tone, Big brother, don't forget that you are also from the Snow Fox tribe. But Li's smile dimmed for a moment. Then, he regained his amorous smile. No, I am no longer a member of the Snow Fox clan. I am yours. Gu Mengmeng believed that she did not see wrongly. Thinking back to what Dumbo had said previously, her heart skipped a beat. She felt a little embarrassed and did not expose him. Instead, she changed the topic, then how do you plan to deal with it? Leah chuckled and hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with his hand, saying, as long as my mighty messenger promises me not to leave the tribe under any circumstances and must bring Elvis and me along when she leaves, then all of Sauter's little tricks will become useless. Why do I need to deal with them? Gu Mengmeng slapped Li's hand away and said, just say what you want to say, don't keep touching me. Leah sighed. He hugged his large tail and touched it. He muttered to himself, sigh, back then when you touched my body all over, I let you do as you please, now you don't even allow me to touch your chin. Sigh, humans are so fickle. Gu Mengmeng really had the urge to bite Leah to death. Damn, couldn't people who had already broken up have some integrity? Was there any meaning in bringing up what happened in the past? Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and ignored him. She turned around and went deeper into the cave to get some meat. After Gu Mengmeng left, Elvis looked at Leah and said faintly, why do you have to pretend to be indifferent? You must be very anxious about facing Sauter, right? If you are willing to say it, Xiao Meng. Leah kept his joking face and heaved a long sigh of relief. He forced a smile and said, I want to be her pillar of support and not her burden. Elvis, at least you should understand me. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang Academy's baby, Wext 1018, for your vote. Chapter 335. When the 4 little fellows woke up, it was already evening. The 5-person meeting had already ended and Gu Mengmeng was sitting beside Elvis, looking at Colin with a sneaky smile. Colin had goosebumps from her smile. He scratched the back of his head and asked, Gu Mengmeng, what's wrong? Why do you keep smiling at me? Gu Mengmeng rubbed her chin and asked, Colin, what do you think of my Sandy? Colin was taken aback by Gu Mengmeng's random question. He thought for a while and said, why is Sandy yours? Isn't she from the Bode family? Gu Mengmeng slapped her thigh and said, "She's mine." Oh. Colin was shocked by Gu Mengmeng. He shrunk his neck and did not dare to ask further. He just turned to look at Barit helplessly. Barit, however, turned his head and pretended not to see anything. He had no intention of helping him at all. Gu Mengmeng patted Colin and said, "I'm asking you a question. What are you looking around for? Answer me, what do you think of my Sandy?" Colin thought about it seriously and answered, "Gluttonous, sleepy and soft-tempered." Gu Mengmeng hissed and said unhappily, "Do you mean that my Sandy doesn't have any good points?" Colin felt a strong sense of danger. He blinked his eyes and did not dare to say anything. Gu Mengmeng continued, "Being able to eat is a blessing. Do you understand?" "Yes, yes, yes." Colin nodded his head in a naive manner. Gu Mengmeng continued, "Sleeping more will make your skin better. This is called self-care and self-regulation by a girl. As a female, she has the responsibility to take care of her appearance to beautify the world. Think about it, when a male goes out to hunt and returns home to see his beautiful wife, isn't that a joyous thing? Would you rather see a beautiful Sandy or a necklace Nina when you return home?" Colin fell into Gu Mengmeng's trap. It was a choice of A or B and his choice was not C or give up. If it was Leah or Oakley, they would definitely ask, "Why do I have to see both of them when I return home and not Maya or you?" But Colin's brain, of course Sandy is better. Right. Gu Mengmeng had a look of approval on her face. She stretched out her arm and placed it on Colin's shoulder, as if they were good brothers. She continued, "Think about it again, Sandy's character is a little soft, but don't you think that having a soft body is an advantage? Could it be that you have the tendency to fight and you like Nina's temperament of flipping out at any time and eating people at the slightest disagreement?" Colin shook his head. His movement was so big that wind entered his mouth. Gu Mengmeng patted Colin's shoulder and said, "That's right, then tell me, is my Sandy a good female?" Colin nodded in agreement. Gu Mengmeng asked again, "Then why didn't you pursue such a good female? Don't you think you are stupid?" Colin nodded subconsciously. After nodding for a long time, he suddenly realized something and began to shake his head. "Sandy is my sister. You can't pursue her." Gu Mengmeng was stunned. What the heck? Forbidden love? You two are from the same mother? Gu Mengmeng asked carefully. Colin shook his head and said, "No, but we grew up together. She has always called me brother." Gu Mengmeng punched Colin's shoulder and said with a face full of sorrow and anger, "You are really damn stupid." Colin was at a loss. He completely did not know what was going on. He could only blink his eyes and look at Gu Mengmeng blankly. What's wrong? Aside from the topic, thank you babies for your love, thank you for your votes and 5-star reviews. Chapter 336. Colin, I always knew you were honest, but I didn't expect you to be so honest. Gu Mengmeng said with a pitiful face, "Do you know that there's a phrase called childhood sweetheart in this world?" Colin thought for a while, then shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with plums. Living together for 1,000 miles, no grudges between the two of you. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and recited, then looked at Colin ambiguously. Colin looked back at her in a daze. The 3 words "I don't understand" were clearly written all over his face. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, "Have you ever thought about why Sandy treats you so well?" Colin looked at Gu Mengmeng and asked sincerely, "Why?" "Because she likes you." This answer almost slipped out, but Gu Mengmeng held it in. Because even if she wanted to say this, it should not come from her mouth. Moreover, as a good bestie, she had the responsibility to maintain her bad friend's advantage and status in the relationship. What the hell was with throwing herself at him? Even if Sandy liked Colin first, she must not let this fellow know. So, Gu Mengmeng turned around and sat back in Elvis's arms, smiling maliciously. "Colin, I heard that Nina is going to find trouble with Sandy." "Why?" Colin frowned and asked. Gu Mengmeng sighed helplessly and said, "Didn't I beat her up again today? She doesn't dare to find trouble with me, so she went to bully Sandy. In the end, it's because Sandy doesn't have a worthy partner in her family. How can Bode and the rest defeat the 20 over partners in Nina's family? Sigh, if Sandy has a strong male in her family, she won't always be bullied by Nina, don't you think so?" Colin thought for a while, then turned to look at Leah and asked carefully, "Leah, how about you consider Sandy?" The great messenger said that Sandy is very good. Lee's smile did not diminish, no emotions could be seen in his curved eyes. He placed his elbow on Colin's shoulder lightly and asked gently, "Are you looking down on me because I'm a beast pet?" "No, no." Colin was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He himself could not explain why. Leah clearly looked like he was smiling happily, but why did he feel a chill down his spine? Leah turned around and pounced towards Gu Mengmeng. "Sobs, sobs, sobs, Mengmeng, you have to seek justice for me." Gu Mengmeng kicked Leah away and squinted at Colin. Colin did not notice Gu Mengmeng's expression at all. He shifted closer to Barit and hugged him in his arms, asking, "Barit, what do you think of Gu Mengmeng's Sandy?" "Heh." Barit sneered. Colin's brain had learned to apply what he had learned on the spot. Trying to use the same trick that Gu Mengmeng had used on him just now to trick him? Did he think he was in the same situation as him? "Heh, what does that mean?" "Look," Gu Mengmeng said, "Sandy has a soft body and is easy to push down. She is a good female." Barit turned around, looked at Colin and asked, "Since she's a good female, why don't you want her?" "Me?" Colin pointed at his own nose in a daze, then laughed out loud and slapped Barit's shoulder. "Stop fooling around, I'm her brother." Barit sighed and looked at Gu Mengmeng, then at Colin, who was still smiling foolishly. He thought to himself, "Brother, good luck to you." Chapter 337. Colin was silent, because even though Nina bullied Sandy in the past, it was always Bode and the rest who suffered and never hurt Sandy. But now, Elvis whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "I remember that Nina only left a bite mark on Sandy's finger, it didn't even break the skin, right? And it seemed like Sandy beat Nina up more miserably." Gu Mengmeng poked Elvis harshly with her elbow and rolled her eyes at him. Then, she squeezed her eyes and pretended to be sorrowful. "Sigh, if only I was a male. Then I would chase after Sandy and protect her with all my might. Whoever dares to bully her, I would pinch him to death. Unfortunately, I am a female. Sigh, why am I not a second-level male orc? Why is this so?" Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion, totally not understanding what was going on. He just felt that Gu Mengmeng was acting unusually today, especially her tone. It was extremely weird. Oh, if Elvis was a modern person, he would know that Gu Mengmeng was acting like a drama queen. Colin looked up abruptly and slapped his thigh. "I'm going." Gu Mengmeng was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be confused and asked, "You? Where are you going?" Colin said, "I'm going to mate with Sandy. I will protect Sandy in the future. I will pinch anyone who dares to bully her to death. I am a second-level orc, and a male." Gu Mengmeng clasped her hands in front of her chest. Her expression was pretentious, as if she was acting in a stage play. Her emphasis was also weird, like the Chinese dubbing in old European and American movies. "But, you are her brother." Colin made a sound, then said, "Because I am her brother, I cannot watch her get bullied by others." Gu Mengmeng's face twitched. What the heck? He still treated her as his own brother? Gu Mengmeng had to go all the way. She brought out the acting skills she used to act in children's dramas at the amusement park, exaggeratedly saying, "No. This can't be." Colin tilted his head, asking, "Why?" Gu Mengmeng said, "Because only males who love her wholeheartedly have the right to protect her." Colin remained silent for a moment, then looked up and asked Gu Mengmeng, "What is love?" "I don't understand." Gu Mengmeng could not continue her act and heaved a sigh of relief. She transformed into a normal person and leaned into Elvis's arms, asking, "If you only have one sweet potato and both you and Sandy are hungry, who is going to eat it?" "Give it to Sandy." Colin said without hesitation, although Sandy is a half-orc, she is also a precious female. Not to mention that there is still a sweet potato. Even if there is no sweet potato, I will eat Sandy to keep her alive. Another freaking gender difference. Gu Mengmeng asked again, if someone made Sandy cry, what would you do? That depends on who it is. Colin said, if it's a male, then strangle him. But if it's a female? Gu Mengmeng pointed at her own nose and asked, what if it's me? Colin was silent for a long time and fell into a dilemma. Then he looked up and said, then why did you bully Sandy? Gu Mengmeng smiled. Because I snatched something she liked. Colin asked again, what is that? I will find you a new one, can't you return the old one to Sandy? Gu Mengmeng stood up from Elvis's arms and walked to Colin. She used her finger to point at Colin's nose and asked, but, what if it's a human? Colin was stunned for a moment, then he drew in a cold breath and said, what? Sandy likes Elvis? Pfft. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to spit a mouthful of blood on Colin's face and drown him. Aside from the topic, Gu Mengmeng, big brother, you must have grown some snacks. Colin, I've grown some, I'm here. Look, I can even jump, it's so warm. Chapter 338. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's expression, Colin knew that he had guessed wrongly. He scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and smiled. Gu Mengmeng, what are you trying to say? Can't you just say it? I'm not as smart as Leah, I can't guess it. Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, knowing that you're not smart means that you're not hopelessly stupid. Colin tilted his head and looked at Barit, asking in a small voice, Gu Mengmeng is praising me, right? Barit sighed and nodded, replying, yes, praising you. I'm so jealous. Colin grinned and chuckled, then there's no use in being jealous, I'm smarter than you. Yeah, you're so smart. Barit turned his head and sighed. While they were fooling around, Elvis suddenly scooped Gu Mengmeng back into his arms and stood up to walk out. No one asked why, but just maintained their formation and followed him out together. Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded, hugging Elvis's neck and asked, what's wrong? What are you going to do? Our sons are still sleeping in the cave, are you just going to leave them here? Elvis turned his head to look at the cave entrance and said, if we can't even protect ourselves, it's better to die cleanly than to live. Huh? You. Gu Mengmeng rolled up her sleeves and placed her hands on her hips. Can you protect yourself when you're not even 3 months old? Yeah. Elvis nodded. Gu Mengmeng wanted to retort but her words were stuck in her throat, she was actually speechless. After holding it in for a long time, she could not come up with a retort and could only look at Leah gloomily, asking, Leah, why don't you go back and help me look after my children for a while? Leah wagged his big tail and said, don't worry, the surroundings are filled with Elvis's scent, normal beasts would not dare to come close. As for the orcs, who would dare to steal the children of the messenger of the beast deity from the tribe leader's house? But Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something more, but she heard someone calling her name from afar. Turning back, she saw an anxious Bode. What happened? Did something happen to Sandy? Gu Mengmeng frowned. Other than Sandy, no one else could make Bode so flustered. Winter had just passed, and Bode's body was a little weak from dieting over the winter. It was still very cold, but he was sweating profusely from running. One of his hands was desperately pointing behind him. The more anxious he was, the more he couldn't speak. Hearing Gu Mengmeng's question, he nodded furiously. Gu Mengmeng said, bring me there. Let's talk while we walk. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng was willing to help, Bode heaved a sigh of relief. He anxiously transformed into a leopard and ran off. Elvis glanced at Gu Mengmeng and asked, do we chase after them, or return to the cave to see our sons? Gu Mengmeng glared at Elvis and said, didn't you say our son is safe in the cave? Let's go and take a look first. Once we're done, we'll rush back before our son wakes up. Elvis smiled faintly and handed Gu Mengmeng over to Leah. He transformed into a wolf and stood on all fours. Leah placed Gu Mengmeng back onto Elvis's back and transformed into a white snow fox. Two streaks of light, one black and one white, chased after Bode's shadow. Barit and Colin looked at each other and also transformed into a leopard and a black bear to follow closely behind. The few of them disappeared on the spot in the blink of an eye. The wind on both sides retreated rapidly, showing that Bode was running with all his might. When everyone stopped, they had already reached the entrance of Sandy's cave. The smell of blood permeated the air. Gu Mengmeng frowned and looked at Bode, asking, "What exactly happened? Tell me quickly." Aside from the topic. Chapter 339. Nina wanted to snatch the prey of the first hunt, but Sandy stopped her. Nina then ordered her own males to attack Sandy. Sandy's males tried their best to protect her but could only let Bode bring Sandy back first. But Leah arranged Bode's intermittent beast language and told Gu Mengmeng. Taking 2 steps forward, he stood in front of Gu Mengmeng and said, "Sandy's injuries are not light. If you're afraid, wait here, I'll go in and settle it." Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and sneered, "Afraid? Ha, I'm afraid that Nina, that perverted pheasant, will not die a horrible death. Move aside, don't block me from looking at Sandy." Leah nodded and took half a step back to make a path. Gu Mengmeng jumped down from Elvis's body. Even if Elvis was the tribe leader, he could not simply enter another female's cave. Other than Gu Mengmeng, the only other person who could enter as he pleased was Leah the witch doctor. Gu Mengmeng walked in front while Leah followed closely behind. Elvis, Barit and Colin stood guard outside the cave. They did not speak and just stood guard quietly, each with their own thoughts. The moment Gu Mengmeng entered the cave, she saw a skinny little bear lying at the corner of the wall. There were many bloody wounds on its body and its flesh was exposed. The blood on its body flowed all over the ground and it had already coagulated, sticking its fur to the ground and making it impossible for her to move. Gu Mengmeng called out softly, "Sandy? Is that you?" Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's call, the little bear raised its head before burying it again, as if it was sad and ashamed. Gu Mengmeng walked over and stroked Sandy's head gently, comforting her gently, "It's all right, don't be afraid. Leah is already here, he can definitely heal you. Moreover, am I not the messenger of the beast deity? I'm very familiar with the beast deity, I'll ask him to protect you so you'll be fine, don't be afraid, ah." Sandy whimpered a few times and obediently placed her chin on Gu Mengmeng's leg without moving. Leah had already started treating Sandy's wounds. Sandy was in so much pain that she twitched, but she stubbornly kept her mouth shut and refused to cry out. Gu Mengmeng's heart ached terribly, but she could not abandon Sandy and immediately run to pinch Nina to death. She had nowhere to vent her anger, so she could only glare at Bode and vent her anger. "Sandy is already so injured, why did you only find me so late?" Bode's heart ached too, but his treatment was not as good as Gu Mengmeng's. He could not even get closer to check on Sandy's injuries, and could only worry helplessly at the periphery. After being yelled at by Gu Mengmeng, he was like a high school student who was dragged to the disciplinary director's office by the security guards for being late. He lowered his head and explained, "Sandy said that you are now the messenger of the beast deity and definitely have a lot of things to do. She didn't want us to bother you because of her." Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth. If Sandy was not lying weakly on her leg, she would have kicked Bode over. If he did not fall, she would have kicked him again. Do you have a brain? You can listen to her for other things, but do you want her to mess around when her life is at stake? Let me tell you, Bode, it's fine if nothing happens to Sandy today. But if anything happens to Sandy, I will skin you alive. Bode looked down and sighed, "If anything really happens to Sandy, you won't be able to skin me alive. I will rot so badly that not even my bones will be left because of the backlash from the mating contract." Gu Mengmeng choked and could not say a word. She snorted heavily and adjusted her tone, hugging Sandy's little head and whispering into her ear, "Silly Sandy, we are good friends. How can you abandon me just because I am the messenger of the beast deity? If I lose you because I am the messenger of the beast deity, then I won't be the messenger anymore. Whoever wants to be the messenger can be it. Aside from the topic, every time Gu Mengmeng scolded Bode, I always had the déjà vu of an empress scolding a concubine. Chapter 340. Sandy raised her head and whimpered. Gu Mengmeng looked at Bode and asked, "What did Sandy say?" Bode frowned awkwardly and stuttered. "Sandy said she likes you the most, no matter whether you are the messenger of the beast deity or not. She wants to stay by your side." Gu Mengmeng frowned impatiently and said, "What An old man speaking in such a slow manner, can't he even be compared to a mina? He can't even speak properly." Bode lowered his head even more. He did not know why, but he always felt that he was inferior in front of Gu Mengmeng. "Sandy said she could not protect the first prey she offered to you. Please don't be angry." Leah helped Bode translate the rest of the sentence while sewing up Sandy's wound. Gu Mengmeng sighed, her eyes filled with heartache. She held Sandy's little face and looked into her dark eyes, saying gently, "Let's not talk about the prey first. You hurt my important friend. How are you going to settle this?" Sandy shrunk her neck. Even though she had a little bare face, she could not hide her shyness. She whimpered and buried her face into Gu Mengmeng's knees. Leah turned around and looked at the dumbfounded Bode. He smiled and said, "You should be glad that Gu Mengmeng is not a male, or else, just based on you, I'm afraid you are not even qualified to be a beast pet." Bode nodded his head in agreement. He then took a step forward and bowed to Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Great messenger, thank you for not being a male." Gu Mengmeng sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Seeing that Leah had already stopped, she guessed that the wound must have been treated. She said, "Cut the crap, go and boil a pot of water for me, I want to clean Sandy's wound." Bode said, "Let me do this kind of thing." Gu Mengmeng smirked coldly and said, "I entrusted a perfectly fine Sandy to you to take care of, but you ended up taking care of me to this state. You still want me to believe you?" Bode pursed his lips and could not say a word. He really could not understand why Sandy was entrusted to him by Gu Mengmeng. He was the one who fought for Sandy when she came of age. Leah pulled Bode and said, "Bring me to see the other males in your family. Sandy is already so injured, the others are probably in a worse state. I'll call someone to take care of this place later." Leah was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly turned to look at Sandy and asked, "Sandy, can I let Mengmeng's subordinates come in?" Sandy called out softly, indicating that she had agreed to his request. Leah winked his left eye at Gu Mengmeng, then brought Bode out with a smile. Gu Mengmeng instantly understood and whispered into Sandy's ear, "Remember, other than pain, don't say anything else later, do you understand?" Sandy did not understand what Gu Mengmeng meant, but she would always listen to her. So he nodded to show that he understood. As soon as he finished speaking, Colin walked in with a big stone pot. Placing the pot aside, she sat on the ground to start a fire. Her simple and honest face had a solemn and unsmiling expression the entire time. It was a kind of suppressed anger. Gu Mengmeng smiled faintly. She thought to herself that Nina was not completely useless after all. The demon this time had really come at the right time. Chapter 341. Sandy did not want Gu Mengmeng or Colin to worry, so she wanted to say that it did not hurt. But when she looked up and saw Gu Mengmeng winking at her, she recalled what Gu Mengmeng had instructed her to do just now, so she whimpered pitifully, probably in pain. Gu Mengmeng had been paying attention to Colin from the corner of her eyes, and indeed, he froze the moment he heard Sandy's voice. She nodded her head silently, thinking to herself, although this fool is slow, at least he has feelings for Sandy. So if she succeeds in matchmaking them, it would be considered as a marriage. So she continued, "Silly Sandy, if Nina snatches anything from you in the future, just give it to her. Look around you, the best fighter is only Bode, a first-level orc. How can he fight against Nina? Although Quentin, a third-level male beast, is not around, but there is still a second-level orc among Nina's partners, right? You know you can't beat her, so just retreat and avoid her in the future. If she wants to snatch your food, just give it to her. If she wants to snatch your beast skin, just give it to her. If she wants to kill you one day, sigh, just accept your fate. Sandy tilted her head, completely not understanding what Gu Mengmeng meant. She did not say that the previous time. Sandy clearly remembered that she had fought with Nina on the morning of the bacon, and Gu Mengmeng had taught her that if Nina provoked her again, she would directly transform into a bear and slap her to death. Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes, and Sandy whimpered softly. Gu Mengmeng did not need to translate to know that she was saying, pain. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head in approval, then sighed with a heavy heart and said, from what I see, you should find a chance this year to choose a second-level male as your partner. Don't care if you like him or not, at least you have someone to support you, so that Nina will have to think twice before bullying you in the future. Sandy wanted to say something, but after mumbling a few times, she could only whimper, pain. Gu Mengmeng muttered to herself, I know. You only mate with males you like, then why don't you tell me, what kind of males do you like? Let me help you choose from the tribe. Or, do you have a suitable candidate in mind? When Gu Mengmeng asked this, her eyes were fixed on Colin. Although Colin was boiling water with his back facing the two females, his stiff back and ears that involuntarily moved closer to Gu Mengmeng's side clearly revealed his concern. Sandy was even more confused. Didn't Gu Mengmeng already guess that she liked Colin in the morning? Why are you asking a question that you already know the answer to? Gu Mengmeng gave Sandy a look, then acted as if she had suddenly realized something and said, oh, I remember, you said you like males like that, right? Colin was speechless. What did that mean, puzzled. Gu Mengmeng added, all right, don't worry, I will help you find that kind of male now. With that, Gu Mengmeng winked at Sandy and moved her little head away from her legs. Then, she patted Colin's shoulder and said, I'll leave this place to you. Take good care of Sandy for me. If Nina's partner comes to find trouble with her later, beat him to death. If he dies, it'll be on me, understand? Colin's muscles twitched, he clenched his teeth and nodded seriously. Gu Mengmeng turned around and walked out of the cave, so that Sandy and Colin could be alone. But she had forgotten one thing, which was that she did not tell Sandy other than pain. She could say anything else, aside from the topic. Colin, Sandy, are you hungry? Sandy. Pain. Colin, Sandy, in the future when Nina bullies you, run away and find Gu Mengmeng or me. I'll protect you, alright? Sandy. Pain. Colin, Sandy, I really like you, how about, you accept me as your partner? Sandy. Pain. Chapter 342. The moment Gu Mengmeng came out, Elvis went up to her and carried her up. He tore off the wet beast skin on her feet and placed her feet on his stomach to warm them up. Where are we going? Elvis asked. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, Nina's house. Elvis frowned. He knew that Gu Mengmeng would not tolerate Sandy's injury any longer. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and smiled at Elvis. She said, even if you let Nina participate in the beauty pageant, can you guarantee that she will not take the opportunity to announce my affairs to the public? Won't we be in a more passive position then? Instead of avoiding, why not take the initiative to attack? For the beauty pageant, I will participate. While everyone is here, I will announce my identity as the messenger of the beast deity. That way, at least no one will dare to create trouble openly. As for the hidden stab, even if I don't show myself, I won't be able to hide for long. Elvis nodded and did not say a word. Even though Gu Mengmeng's plan was different from what he had discussed with Leah, he believed in Gu Mengmeng and did not need any other reasons. He would do as she said. When Gu Mengmeng brought Elvis and Barit to the outside of Nina's cave, a pungent smell assaulted their nostrils and made Gu Mengmeng frown in displeasure. Before she could say anything, 7 to 8 males jumped out of the cave and blocked in front of Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said, You think you can stop me? The males looked at each other and one of them said, This is Nina's territory. Without her permission, you can't enter. Gu Mengmeng looked as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. She covered her mouth with one hand and laughed for a long time. She laughed until tears flowed out before she stopped. She glanced sideways and said, I will enter. You can follow the rules of the beast world and treat us as invading enemies to attack. No one will stop you. The males were taken aback and took 2 steps back instead of advancing. They said, You are the messenger of the beast deity. How can you not follow the rules? Gu Mengmeng shrugged and said, You also know that I am the messenger of the beast deity? Then do you know that from now on, the rules of this world are set by me? The male was so ridiculed that he was speechless. He felt that the little female in front of him was like a completely different person compared to when she taught everyone how to preserve meat before winter. Back then, she was as warm as the sun, but now, she was like the sun itself, emitting a heat that could destroy everything. Elvis did not stop and maintained his original speed as he continued walking in. A few males wanted to stop him, but Elvis gave a cold snort and emitted a strong pressure. Those males immediately laid on the ground and could not stand up. Leave this to me, Barit said from behind Elvis. Elvis nodded, retracted his pressure and continued forward. When he reached the entrance of the cave, all of Nina's other partners had already come out. Gu Mengmeng counted, 27. What about the other one? Are you accompanying Nina inside? Gu Mengmeng asked with a smile. Nina's partners were stunned. They did not expect that they would be discovered so quickly. They exchanged glances with each other and decided to guard the cave entrance with all their might and wait for the 28th person to come and save Nina. However, Gu Mengmeng smiled and pulled Elvis's arm. She said, Don't dirty your hands. Isn't Nina in the cave? Just nice, I can summon the flame demon and roast him into a beggar's chicken in the cave. It will save me a lot of trouble and also nourish my Sandy's body at the same time. Aside from the topic, yeah, today's update is over. I guess, someone is going to say that I'm stuck again? Susu expressed her helplessness. The 9,000 word update ends here. I didn't mean to be stuck. Chapter 343. Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's words, Nina, who was originally hiding in the cave, immediately ran out. The males blocking the entrance all stood in front of her and said to Gu Mengmeng, If you are here because of Sandy, then please punish me. After hurting a precious female, even if I have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, I have no complaints. However, this has nothing to do with Nina. She has never hurt Sandy. Great messenger, please don't vent your anger on her on account that Nina is a precious perfect female. I wasn't the one who injured Sandy. It's unreasonable for you to want to burn me to death. Also, didn't you want me to participate in the beauty pageant? If you burn my delicate skin, Saint Nazir won't be able to recruit any brave males then. Nina hid behind her male's back and stretched out her neck to shout. Gu Mengmeng covered her mouth and laughed lightly. She said in disdain, The words messenger of the beast deity is not more attractive than a wild chicken like you? You're just a meat bird, yet you think you're a peacock. Nina wanted to retort, but when she saw Elvis's ice-cold face, she could not help but shut up in fear. His gaze drifted into the distance, and he was anxious. Why wasn't that person back yet? Don't bother. I told Colin to keep an eye on Sandy. Right now, he's fuming with rage. Unless you send your level 2 beast master, you might have a chance to fight him. But Gu Mengmeng glanced at Nina and smiled. With your level of selfishness, you definitely won't let your strongest partner leave your side. Otherwise, who would risk their lives to hold Elvis back so that you can fight for a chance to escape when I charge over here? Nina was stunned. Nina's heart turned cold. She could not understand how Gu Mengmeng guessed that she would think of using Sandy to threaten Gu Mengmeng. Actually, it was not that Gu Mengmeng had such incredible foresight, it was just that she had seen too many palace fights, so she still had to guard against such tricks. Moreover, her real purpose of keeping Colin was for them to cultivate their relationship. Gu Mengmeng was very surprised that Nina would use such an obvious tactic that was just short of setting up a sign saying I'm going to kidnap Sandy. She thought that, even though Nina was dumb, she would not be so extraordinarily dumb. It seemed that she had underestimated Nina's stupidity. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and asked, "How long can Nina's partners drag you out?" 1 or 2 seconds. Elvis did not know how long 1 second and 2 seconds were. He just raised his head and kissed Gu Mengmeng's little hand gently. "Close your eyes." Gu Mengmeng did not understand, so she closed her eyes. Feeling a jolt in her body, she panicked and opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, she was already in front of Nina. Nina's partner was lying 3 to 5 meters away. Dead. He should not be dead yet, but it was obvious that he could no longer move. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng with one hand while his other hand hung down naturally. Fresh red blood dripped from his fingernails onto the ground, as if he was the god of death, emitting a dark and terrifying aura. But Gu Mengmeng was not surprised by this. She had seen Li's skills before and knew that the difference in levels in the beast world was absolutely irresistible. The third level Leah only took 3 seconds to defeat Nina's partner, the fourth level Elvis. If it wasn't for Barit who was behind them, he would probably just need to release some pressure and they would all be lying on the ground, unable to get up. Out of topic, baby's January will be over in a week's time. The tickets don't need to expire. Susu is so cute. Give me the tickets. Roll on the ground and beg for love. Chapter 344. Elvis reached out his hand and strangled Nina's neck, but Gu Mengmeng patted his shoulder, signaling him to stop. Elvis sighed and slowly put down his blood-stained hand. He looked down at Nina, who was lying on the ground and panting like a fish that had been beached, preventing her from doing anything to hurt Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng knew the reason why Elvis sighed. Although she could not understand, she clearly knew that Elvis and Leah were jealous that Barit had once gone to the platform of the deity's punishment for her to a certain extent. It was as if Barit had proven his feelings for Gu Mengmeng while they did not get such a chance. This logic was very strange, but now was not the time to explain. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "Put me down." Elvis frowned and said, "There's no hide on your feet, the ground is cold." Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "It's all right, let me down." Elvis's gaze landed on the puddle of blood on the ground and he frowned. Gu Mengmeng saw it too, but she nodded at Elvis, indicating that it was all right. Elvis could not dissuade Gu Mengmeng, so he took 2 steps back and tore off the hide dress from one of Nina's partners. He tore it into 2 and carefully wrapped it around Gu Mengmeng's feet before letting her down. After Gu Mengmeng landed on the ground, she walked towards Nina with slow and pressuring steps. "You instigated Quentin to assassinate me, but it didn't work anyway, so I can ignore it. You found trouble with me from time to time, but it's harmless, so I can ignore it. You sold my information to the people of Sauter, but it can't be kept a secret for long, so I can ignore it. You claimed to be the most beautiful female in the tribe and pestered my man, but my man did not like you, so I can ignore it. You even threatened to kill my son, but you don't have the ability to do so, so I can ignore it. But, you hurt my best friend, I can't let you off." When Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence, one of her feet had already stepped on Nina's shoulder. Leaning forward, he stepped on her firmly on the ground. I am the female of Saint Nazir. Our tribe has its rules. People of Saint Nazir cannot kill people of Saint Nazir." Nina had never been so afraid. It was not the first time Gu Mengmeng had hit her, but she had never seen such an obvious murderous intent in her eyes. That small body seemed to have the power to rule the world. Only when she looked up to him did she truly understand what it meant to be the messenger of the beast deity. "You are from Saint Nazir, huh?" Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said in a low voice, "But I am a deity." Gu Mengmeng stepped on Nina's shoulder with one foot and stepped on Nina's face with the other, forcing the side of Nina's face to stick to the ground. Her neck was forced to be exposed. Gu Mengmeng bent her knees and bent into a bow stance. She grabbed Nina's throat with one hand and strangled it fiercely. She sneered, "Your neck is really too thick. Even if I use both my hands, I can't wrap my arms around it. So, let's make it simpler, how about that?" Nina instantly suffocated. Her face turned red, and she couldn't make a sound. She didn't understand why Gu Mengmeng, who looked so weak, was closer to death when she was strangling her than when Elvis was strangling her neck with his big hands. Fear caused her eyes to widen and her face to look ferocious and terrifying. She used both her hands to grab around, trying to pull Gu Mengmeng down from her body. But with just one flop, before she could even touch Gu Mengmeng's clothes, both her hands were pinned to the ground on both sides of her body. Her wrists were broken and they were embedded into the depression in the ground in a weird position. Aside from the topic, are you nervous? Is it exciting? Where's the ticket? If I don't have the ticket, I will have to say, listen to the next episode. I lied to you 5 minutes later, next update. Chapter 345. Gu Mengmeng raised her head and met Li's smiling eyes. He stretched out a clean hand towards Gu Mengmeng like a gentleman, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to pass her little hand to him. He placed the blood-stained hand behind his back and said gently, "She is not worthy of dirtying your hand. Leave it to me, all right?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Leah and then at Elvis, saying, "Me killing her is the oracle, the mandate of the heavens. If you guys do it, you will be breaking the rules of the beast world and will have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment." Li's smile did not diminish and he said, "Your oracle is also the oracle and also the mandate of the heavens." Gu Mengmeng frowned but did not know what to say. You are abusing your authority, you are abusing your authority to take revenge. I am a complete female, the beloved of the beast deity. If you treat me like this, you will be punished by the beast deity. Nina seemed to be extremely afraid and started shouting incoherently. But she did not know that such shouting would only make her die faster. Gu Mengmeng knocked on Nina's Adam's apple with her knife hand and Nina instantly started coughing violently. Breathing became a problem, not to mention talking. Gu Mengmeng squatted down and looked at her coldly, saying, "Don't you know? The beast deity is the father beast. I am abusing my authority and taking revenge on him. These are all taught by him." Obviously, Gu Mengmeng was spouting nonsense. However, Nina believed him. Mengmeng. Leah used his clean hand to carry Gu Mengmeng up gently and stared into her eyes, saying, "Can't you let me be the first person to carry out the execution according to the oracle?" Gu Mengmeng looked into Li's eyes and it was as if she could see an indescribable pain and struggle in those eyes. The only outlet to vent his anger was himself. Gu Mengmeng recalled what Elvis had told her about Li's past. He came from Sauter, which was the tribe of the previous messenger of the beast deity. He was the 9th highness who was banished for unknown reasons. His heart was filled with hatred but he did not mention a word about his past. If the oracle of the messenger of the beast deity could free him, then why was she still hesitating? Gu Mengmeng slowly stood up and took a step back, leaning back into Elvis's arms. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng up steadily and placed her on his shoulders. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head slightly and stared into Li's eyes. She reached out a hand and placed it on his forehead. "As the messenger of the beast deity, I bestow upon you the right to execute and punish Nina." Leah knelt down on one knee and used his clean hand to hold up Gu Mengmeng's little foot. He brought it to his lips and kissed it gently, while his other blood-stained hand was placed on his chest, painting a dark red cinnabar on that white chest. Elvis did not let Gu Mengmeng see how Leah carried out his punishment, because she should not have to experience those unpleasant scenes. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances before leaving with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis and Leah were not willing to let her see their brutal and tyrannical side, and she also did not have any desire for violence. From the bottom of her heart, she did not really want to kill Nina herself, even though she was just a wild chicken and could transform into a human form. If she really saw her die under her orders, Gu Mengmeng would still feel guilty. So when Elvis brought her away, Gu Mengmeng did not protest and did not turn back. She only needed to wait. Wait for Leah to come back and tell her what the oracle meant to him, and why his gaze had such a complicated and heavy foundation. Aside from the topic, I can tell you very responsibly that Nina received her bento box. I did not describe the way she died because she was so lowly that she was not worthy of my words. Babes who still feel that your anger has not been vented, Please use your imagination and imagine the various scenes of Leah torturing and killing Nina. There are only things that you can't imagine, but there is nothing that Leah cannot do. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.